Hello, Mary. Can you hear me? I No. Oh gosh, I don't know what's going on. Can't hear me. Right, because we I could hear you before, and I thought you could you hear me before? And suddenly it switched off. Okay, so what I'm going to do in the chat, I'm going to put in a question to Mary. So this is like flying a plane blind, isn't it, really? So we've got two people on here, and let's see how this works. You can hear now. Fantastic.
Yes, I can.
Right.
Hello,
Brilliant.
Janice.
Hello. Do you know what? I was just going to post the question in the private chat, but now you can hear Mary. Let's dig into this question. So, how can sales teams thrive amidst economic challenges and technological advancements? How can they thrive?
Well, first, let me say I have the utmost respect for everyone who does B2B sales and sales of any kind. I love sales and have been doing it my entire career one way or another. And we find as people who sell that there are all kinds of twists and turns in the sales process depending on the complexity of the product or service that you're repping. And there are twists and turns in the environment outside your own world, which you have no control over. And I think right now we're at a very interesting juncture where we're seeing very, very rapid technological advancement, and that advancement being embedded into all kinds of solutions that sellers and buyers use and being embraced by organizations of all shapes and sizes. And namely, that's generative AI using 3.5. And the capabilities are improving so quickly. And it's also using automation. And so I think there's a couple of things. We can't control what's happening in the world outside of us. The economy, the stock market goes up, goes down. There's global conflicts. There's social dynamics and unrest. There's, I don't even want to say it, political candidates running for office certain places, not to be mentioned. So there's all kinds of things that are happening. And I think the biggest thing you can do is understand that technology is going to be integral into the way we work, the way we spend our free time and our social time, and the way we interact with the world and others around us. And so learn, learn, learn. That's the biggest message I would have, which is go onto Coursera, take courses that your organization offers, do a boot camp, understand how to do prompt engineering. Generative AI will be woven into the fabric of everything that we do at work going forward. So get out ahead of it, learn it, embrace it. Don't feel that it's going to disintermediate you. Think of it as a partner. I think then, the other things on the external side and dealing with buyers, it's difficult. Buying groups are larger. We're dealing with digital natives. We're dealing with folks that are very comfortable selling themselves through downloading content and going on seeing videos and spending very little time with salespeople. So you really have to make the most of that moment when you get connected one-to-one in a selling situation. So I keep saying this, but the bar continues to raise and raise on sellers, and you've got to make sure, before you join that call, you have your insights ready, you have your pitch ready, you have your active listening ready. And people still do want to buy for people. I mean, that's just never going to change, but you've got to control everything that you can, which is really using the technology and making sure you upskill yourself and making the most out of every interaction you have with a buyer along the buying cycle.
I think it's really interesting. There's a few points that I want to pick up here. And I remember you telling me a few weeks ago that you're taking courses. There's, you're following particular people that, are further ahead and constantly learning. And you think, well, we all need to be doing this and not think that the job is done. There's always new things to learn. And there's an example of that. The Stanford Institute of Human Capital in Artificial Intelligence, they've just issued a report, the Index Report 2024, and it's covering major trends in AI and development. It's 502 pages. What did I do? I used
You did a
AI.
summary.
Give me the key points, No longer do we have to slog at all of this, And
We
I
don't.
could have then tailored it to say, give me the key points relevant to a particular personality or position that I am then going to be talking to in a sales call, or something that's relevant to the industry. Give me the key points. So, it really is an enabler, and you never stop learning, and you can tailor it as it becomes generative AI becomes so much more advanced. So I love what you're saying, and even on the buyer side, what you were saying about buyers, they do relish human connection. After all, buyers are human. We all relish human connection, but it's actually got to be of value, of relevance, and that's where the AI comes in to help that situation. So I love this, love it.
Well, there's two ways that the AI really help you. One is it's a massive time saver. Two, and it can make you more intelligent, have more insights more quickly. And so you've got to be using it. I use Grammarly on every email. Look, I have a PhD. I know how to write, but I mean, I get like 100 recommendations from Grammarly every time I write. I'm like, oh my God, what did I do before this? So like if you're, all my LinkedIn posts, I start with an AI, and then of course I make it my own, right? My own language. But you're getting deeper insights, and you're getting it really, really quickly. I'll give your audience just a really quick example of when I used 3.5 the other night. I was at Ravinia, which is the home of the Chicago Symphony in the summertime, and there was a beautiful dinner for donors and other people, and they focused on women in leadership, and they brought in astronauts, astrophysicists, women conductors, and women composers. I was seated next to someone, and I had a sneaky hunch, Janice, that she was like somebody, but I didn't really know who she was, right? Because there were all these luminaries here. So I put my iPhone down and I did a chat search on her. And lo and behold, she was an astrophysicist based in the UK, works at a famous institution. She discovered a moon around Saturn, and we right now have a spaceship that's going out to map that moon that she discovered. Well, very quickly, I was able to move from small talk to big talk. And I'm just a musicologist and a salesperson and a former CEO. But I don't know anything about astrophysicists, but we ended up striking up a great conversation. And so, there's so many different ways you can use it.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Stanford Institute says that one of the key takeaways from their research is AI makes us work more productive and leads to better quality work. Your example, it makes us smarter. Who wouldn't want that?
Well, I got a new friend, and she found out I was an Anglophile, and she's invited me to come out and see the royal family the next time she gets some sort of an invite. So who knows how it all will transpire, Janice? But it's the point being. The point being is have fun with it.
I'm included. I'm included in that invite, Mary.
Of course you are. Of course you are. Of course you are.
Okay, so with B2B sales teams becoming smaller, I spoke about this at the last year's GTM Pavilion conference and gave lots of examples of where this happened. And it's very much driven by tech, but it's also driven by understanding that there's so much waste in our sales operation. I still talk to sales leaders that say, I'll recruit 5, knowing that only 2 will, maybe 2, 1 or 2 of them I expect to stay. For the last 30 years, the quota attainment has been 50%. During lockdown, right. It went up to 70%. So much waste. We cannot afford that. So how do you assess top talent in light of sales teams becoming smaller and more tech enabled?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, quite a few points to here to sort of amplify on. And the first one will be the size of the organization. So we're in a situation where there's a lot of uncertainty on the macroeconomic side, and we're seeing a lot of movement within organizations of all shapes and sizes where human capital and financial resources are being put into innovative projects that use generative AI and other things like that. And organizations now are focused on efficient growth versus growth at all costs, right? Even the startups and late stage startups. So CROs don't have the ability to go out and hire 3 for 1. I did that, like you described, many, many times. You just knew. And so we have to get better at a couple of different things as leaders. One, we have to get better at assessing and picking the right talent. And then we have to get better at continuous enablement and personalized enablement of that talent. And then we need to ensure that we have the right culture and career pathing to make that talent want to stay with us for a long time. Because it's very expensive anytime you turn over sales talent, depending on what the complexity of your sales cycle. It could be $1 million that you're losing if you hire a salesperson who can't produce, right? That's the lost time of interviewing, the 3 to 6 months that they didn't deliver any revenue or poor pipeline, another 3 months that they're on the plan before you can exit them from the business, and then you start all over again, right? So it's very expensive. So you have to get better at picking that right talent. And that's one of the areas that my new company can really help sales leaders with. We are an HR tech company. It's called Hire Quotient, and the company's been around for about 3 years. We have a sourcing tool, a candidate recruitment tool that helps recruiters and line business leaders and sales leaders quickly identify, so source, rank, and communicate with those candidates. And so it essentially compresses the first 3/4 of the candidate cycle, uses a wide range of sources that it pulls active and passive candidates from. And then it follows not only the job description, but the AI prompts that the recruiter and manager enter in that are really important to them. So you can go down this rabbit hole of getting some really specific talent, which you would never be able to access without AI doing that for you. And so our firm will help recruiters and managers go out and get that great talent and rank them based on your criteria, and then communicate that with them in a sequence or cadence that we have within our solution. So first of all, there's more sophisticated ways, faster ways, and better ways of getting talent that's going to be really aligned with the specialties that you need, as well as the cultural dynamics of your organization. And it's a little bit more than just putting out referral bonuses and me hiring from my network, right? It can be more sophisticated. So if you can get that deep talent initially, you're in a better position. And then the next stage is really, you and I have many friends and colleagues in common that are focused on the enablement world. That world has gotten hit been hit hard over the last several years, but you need a really strong enablement program, and enablement needs to start to be personalized for each learner, right? And the AI can help with that. So there's a lot of different things you can do, but I think we're at a world where we can't afford the shrinkage of 80% of your revenues coming from 20% of your people. You're going to start to see productivity and production across the team being really key metrics for those sales leaders, not just hitting the quota, but hitting the quota the right way with all your individuals.
Absolutely. I love this, and there's lots I'd like to pick up and add to. And first, in terms of hiring the right people, getting the right people in the right seat, and so OMG has some data in that 77% of your existing sales team are either in the wrong role or shouldn't be in the industry. And so you can clearly see why the quota attainment historically have been so low. And then the other side, in terms of recruiters, it's like a recycling of the same poor people going round and round. And what's great about Hire Quotient, it's not reliant on that. It's actually going out to other sources that are much cleverer, that are reaching out to identify the absolutely right people. So that's what I love. It kind of overrides a really poor system that we've got in place currently, really crude. And then the other thing, in terms of whether we're looking at resumes, interview techniques, and you mentioned the referrals, the predictive effectiveness of these really crude tools is only about 20%. So we've got to start using much better, cleverer tools to do that. And so Hire Quotient is one, but also the process that I use after you've identified the right people is like, well, making sure that they're right in terms of benchmarking assessments that have been carried out over the last 30 years across 200 industries, countries, different positions. So we're able to identify what great looks like for your particular sector, in your culture, for your market. And by doing that assessment, they're either recommended or they're not recommended. But the important thing in terms of development is that you now have an individual template. It's like having a clear crystal ball rather than a foggy one. You know what buttons to switch on. How can I coach this person to maintain those high productive standards? What do I already know about this person? And what are the bits that I need to help them to grow further in order to consistently perform? If you do that on your entire sales team, you can have a smaller sales team because you know that they are already top quartile, and you also know how to coach them to maintain those high standards or get even better.
I agree. I mean, and I think there's two things. One, which is I agree with you that oftentimes, in the earlier days, and probably still now, with companies that aren't using sort of more technology and more specific methodologies like what you described, you absolutely can have the wrong people in the right people in the wrong roles, right? Or the wrong people in the right roles, however you want to look at it. And, if you think about someone who's going out to acquire new logos versus someone who is really focused on renewals and retention and delivering and re-delivering the value that the customer has already bought, like those mindsets and the DNA and the personality makeup is very different. I mean, I tend to be focused on, I was always really great on the new logo hunting. I mean, thrill of the chase. I'm a bit of an adrenaline junkie. Maybe I'm a little transactional. I don't know. But that's me. And sure, could I do an account management job? Sure, of course I could. But I get really fired up on the other stuff. So I think you're right. You do have to have the right people in the right positions. The other thing is that the salesperson's role has changed a lot over the last 10 years and 5 years. Like, because the buyer can do so much on their own, the expectation is now and because technology can do so much to alleviate that 40 to 60 to 70% of the time that salespeople historically have been focused on downstream low value activities. Now with your time freed up, you should be getting smarter, right? Because that's what you should be doing. You should be doing more research. You should be getting insights, so that you should be prepping for that call, so that when you have it, you're like a consultant. And it's interesting. I had someone from a past work life who it was not a salesperson, who had been reading a lot of what I'd been writing, and said she's looking for a job. And she said, "Mary, should I consider a sales role? Like, I never thought about it before, but everything that you just described, that's me. That's what I do." So I think we're starting to see like more consultative people in this role, people who understand data, who understand data science, who understand the questions to ask, who understand and like using technology, who historically maybe would have shied away from that salesperson's role because it was so repetitive, right? And kind of, not as intellectually challenging as folks like that might look for. So we are seeing redefinition of what it means to be B2B seller. And I think they're consultants. I think they're people that coming out of our top business schools, people who are curious and smart and want to work side by side with their customer and their customer's providers to ensure that their customer gets the outcomes that they're looking for.
Excellent. Yeah, totally agree, Mary. I know that you love great research, and we can't not have a conversation without talking about diversity.
True.
So, and we're both campaigners to, increase the diversity of in sales, because it's pretty appalling. So Harvard Business Review wrote a report, AI should augment human intelligence, not replace it. And what I found was interesting. They call it new diversity. The new diversity is a composition of humans and non-humans working together.
Wow.
That's what they call new diversity. But what is interesting, the psychology behind this, is that the risks that stereotypical beliefs and biases that we all know about, Mary, can easily influence decision making in teamwork when the machines, as non-humans, are considered to be co-workers. They are the same mistrust and negative perceptions as if they are diverse workers.
Wow,
That's
intense.
fascinating. Yes.
I need to get that article. So you've
I'll
got
send
to
it to
please
you.
share that with
Yeah,
everyone. I mean, that sounds
yeah,
fascinating.
yeah. Really interesting. Yeah.
Really
Put it in the
interesting.
chat.
Well,
Yeah.
without sort of, I know you and I are advocates for people of all shapes and sizes in the business world, and bringing their authentic selves to work. And it is appalling that we don't have more women in the field and more people of color. And you and I are working on that in the ways that we can. What's interesting though is something I picked up is I do, I'm always evaluating new technologies, and you've got these AI agents, and how many times do you have the AI agent who's doing all of the heavy manual labor, the lifting, the stuff that we don't want to do, and the tech entrepreneur actually gave them a female name, and like, guys, let's not call those bots women's names and start giving them orders, right? Let's use gender neutral terms. I've digressed a little bit, but I hope it's okay.
Yeah, but it's like negative, right? And why are negative things female and positive male? I mean, it's really simple, but people do it subconsciously. That
They do.
but they've got to work harder, because actually nowadays it's conscious. It's
Yeah.
not.
Right.
You cannot rely on being, well, I wasn't aware, I didn't know. Well, you've got to self-educate, which is what we said at the top.
Right. For sure. For sure.
Yeah. Okay. So, in wrapping this up, so what steps are essential in transitioning to an agile tech-enabled workforce?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the biggest thing is getting educated, right? So understanding what's possible, what's out there, reading some of the articles that you referenced in this conversation, going to events like this, working with consultants like yourself, or DM me anytime. I'm willing to talk to anyone anytime about tech because I love it. So I think it's, first and foremost, it's getting educated. Once you're educated, then you can understand what's possible, right? And CROs don't necessarily have to be top users of tech, but you need to think of technology as another arrow in your strategic quiver as a C-suite executive. So you've got to then educate yourselves on the providers that are out there and the landscape. So we've seen, marketing automation sort of hit an apex in the early first decade of the 2000s. We saw, sales tech emerge in the 2015, 2017, 2020, still hoping for, expecting some consolidation there. Now it's a moment where automation and generative AI is being applied to the workflows and business processes and activities that HR professionals do as well. So, it's about using tech on the front end of the process for hiring. Once you hire those folks, using tech and consultants to assess where your folks are and how you can tailor learning programs for them, and getting the hiring right. And when you have people in the sales organization, you're going to have to amplify and augment them with all of the right technologies. So that's revenue enablement, sales execution, whatever it is. Like, you should not be doing a forecast unless you have a dashboard at an individual contributor level, manager or C-suite, that shows you every deal, positive and negative sentiment from all of the interactions over the last week, months, 3 months of that customer. Like, you have no business forecasting unless you're using the signals that the buyers have interacted with you to help you understand. So making sure that you have a top tier sales tech stack in addition to your recruiting tools, and using those appropriately, educating folks, driving adoption. And then look, at the end of the day, and I'll probably get in trouble from somebody for saying this, but tech's supposed to make our world better, right? If you're a salesperson, your aim should be meeting and exceeding your quota by working 3 to 4 days a week. It's possible. You've got to be efficient. You've got to be smart. You've got to be good. We should all be enjoying the fruits of our labors, which would be bringing on new customers, delivering value in ways we've never delivered it before to existing customers, and then having a wonderful work-life balance, so that you can do things in and above working 7 days a week. We shouldn't be tethered to our devices. They should be giving us personal and professional freedom, and hopefully we'll get there. That's my vision.
I love this. I'm not going to sum up because I think that you've already done it, talking about augmented RI, inclusive leadership, continuously learning and looking at it as an enabler. And I love the 4 days a week. I love that.
We'll
so
see.
let me
Now,
just
for
remind
the record,
that we have a
no, go ahead.
yeah, go for it, Mary.
I was going to say, just for the record, I do work a full 5 or 6 days a week. All right.
So much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing everybody at the next session on Tuesday.